Welcome to the Solar Builder Buzz, where we give our 2 cents per kilowatt on the residential and commercial solar industry. Joining me today to discuss residential solar market trends is Sarah Kim, VP of Marketing at Aurora Solar. Hey, Sarah, how you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
You all at Aurora Solar recently published this awesome solar industry snapshot. It went deep into 2023 residential solar trends using your projects database. So you mined that data, over 6 million projects over the past 2 years, a survey of 1,000 US homeowners for their thoughts, and a pulse check of the solar industry through the lens of almost 1,000 US solar pros, right? So there was kind of a lot that went into what you guys had in the report. Did you find that your results differed in any way from other forecasts for the growth of the residential solar industry across the country?
I wouldn't say that it differed in any meaningful way in that, generally speaking, things are looking up for the solar industry, right? We all know we're in a sort of a bright spot right now, and there's a lot of excitement, obviously, from the recent policy changes. And, in California specifically, there's some concern over NEM, but even that, I think recently our data has shown that there's a lot of resilience in this industry.
It comes through in the interest part of the results. Interest among consumers and everyone is very high. But it stands out that overall installations are like comparatively low compared to how high interest is, right? Does that seem like a noteworthy imbalance to you? Or is this just generally how surveys like this can shake out, where interest is high for a very cool thing, but adoption kind of lags further behind that?
Chris, I've been in this industry for over a decade now, and I would say one thing to note is that, interest wasn't always this high. So that's very good news, first and foremost, right? That, this is a moment in the history of the, energy space where the interest is really high. And yes, of course, these things take a little bit longer. It's pretty normal that interest will always precede an actual action on the part of home installations. But I think overall, there's nothing surprising in this, and that most large-scale home projects take some time to understand and then obviously take action on. So still very optimistic. In fact, I'm going through a solar installation pretty soon myself. And I've been interested for many years. So there you go, right? Things take a little time to translate.
Yeah, great point. I'm glad you phrased it like that. And, that can lead to different challenges on the solar installation side, where the high level of interest coupled with the stat later you have in the report that 22% of installers you surveyed report homeowners are reluctant to commit to quotes as being one of their biggest problems. And so you have high demand, needing a lot of front end work that ultimately fizzles out. Which stinks obviously for installers out there. Is there anything that stood out as a meaningful opportunity for solar installers to capitalize on that high level of interest and lower that percentage of reluctant leads?
I guess there are a number of things that installers can do to make sure that that journey is easy for the homeowner, so that ultimately that they will convert to paying customers, right, that ultimately get a solar system on their house. I think it's incredibly important at this time for installers to do their own legwork, right, to do their research, to make sure that they line up multiple financing options. They show up at the table with the ones that are, best in line with the homeowner. What are they looking for? Is it a $0 down? Are they looking for ultimately lower monthly payments, overall payments, right? Everyone still has these preferences, and maybe even talk to, your home loan officers and, people in this or the banking industry, because they're used to helping homeowners understand and think through these options in the right way. And similarly, options overall, right? So let's not forget that even though it is true that most customers are still looking to go solar for financial reasons, there's a lot of other motivations going on. Increasingly, homeowners are worried about blackouts. We've seen a lot of these, issues across the country over the past few years with weather situations. We need to make sure that installers do come up with options that align with these specific personal motivations, let's call it.
What's kind of making this more complicated, another main drivers of interest on the homeowner side are also batteries and EVs. So that's cool. As like we have another kind of like driver to get interest into solar, but those obviously are also expensive. They add even more costs, right? So
Yep.
it's like I don't know. Is it like a rock and a hard place type thing? Like I guess what does it mean? Where the high levels of interest driving solar are also driving the main complaint that everything costs a lot.
Yeah, we all want things that are more expensive, right? So that part is not surprising. That's just human behavior, I think. Obviously, yes, these add-ons to solar are sort of the applications on the applications that are driving interest in the infrastructure that is now clean energy. When it comes to cost, this kind of goes back to more personal motivations. It seems these conversations, from what we can tell, are not about the the numbers specifically so much as they are about the reasons to go solar, wanting to protect your family in emergency situations, having that backup battery storage, being able to, how cool is it, right, just to be able to charge your car on the sun, right? That sticker shock they get when they go to the gas stations every day, right, to pump gas. They want to be able to say, oh, you know what, I can say no to that now, right? So there's a lot of things that are not necessarily the dollars and cents that are driving this behavior, and I think we underestimate how strong those motivations are relative to calculating out exactly what percentage ROI am I going to get over the span of the system.
So I'll switch gears here a little bit to another standout number, at least to me. Half of homeowners' biggest concern is determining if an installer is legitimate. And so how can legitimate installers, I guess, appear legitimate?
This number is it's an unfortunate perception problem, right? Another favorite concern of marketers. I would say, this number, in fact, is even larger for certain populations, specifically, among baby boomers, for example. That number is actually as high as 60%. And, to your point about this legitimacy problem, a lot of homeowners feel like this outreach that they get from a lot of the solar companies in their neighborhood feel like spam, like, why are you following me around and sending me useless, brochures? And so it's absolutely critical for this industry to be able to scale, to overcome these signals that we're sending out there. How do they do this? Well, I don't know that I have any magic bullet. As a marketer, I think this may sound like a marketer answer. In fact, the things that have worked for so many other businesses in the digital space will work in this industry as well, right? I mean, can you imagine 10 years ago that we were going to use Airbnb and stay at some stranger's home, right?
Yeah,
Crazy, right? So, I mean, how do we get over that? Well, we did it by being very forthcoming with information, making it very obvious and easy to have a digital presence that has easy to find information, contact information, support information, really basic things, right? Having a few reviews from homeowners in the surrounding area. That's why word of mouth and referrals have always been such a big part of this industry. There are some other things that they could do to boost their digital presence, but beyond that, I think there's still a lot of human elements in this business that we still see, right? It is very much a local business in many ways as well, which I think is very helpful for the sort of the smaller installers that may feel like, hey, I don't have like the national presence on the big budgets to go and do advertising, but having validation from a handful of homeowners that have seen good work from your business, making sure that shows up in every touch point along the customer journey is super important.
The report also got into homeowner perceptions of solar, some of which are misconceptions, like 34% thinking solar panels are less efficient in winter. I'm wondering, when you were looking over those data points and some of the prevailing perceptions, if anything stood out maybe as a particular opportunity for solar installers, maybe to market in a different way, kind of like what we were just talking about?
There's still so much opportunity for education in this space. Installers are as close as it comes to the homeowner and being that, I don't know, coach maybe in some ways, like throughout this journey. they need to be able to walk in with confidence, with data, with credible sources of information, right, that the industry puts out there. Organizations like SIA, right, we certainly do our little bit to keep our customers, our installers informed on our blog, but every one of our installers have a opportunity and a responsibility, I would say, to do some homeowner education. The other piece of that is, increasingly this entire experience is now digital, right? We're seeing, especially over the pandemic, there has been an evolution towards homeowners wanting to consume more services and products through a digital experience. That gives installers incredible power to be able to not just show up with the final quote, but really be able to walk them through that entire process of, hey, guess what? This is where the sun is throughout the day. Here's how it moves, right? Here's what the numbers show you. Let me show you a chart with where your utilities are, how much you're paying today, how that's going to evolve over time, and what the savings look like vis-a-vis your current bills. And so this is incredible opportunity to have a teaching moment in every stage of this buying cycle that I think installers should absolutely take advantage of.
When thinking of maybe some of the regions or just areas around the country that are still trying to get up to speed and build their solar market for various reasons, do you have examples that stand out maybe among your customers, or just things you've seen in talking to installers around the country of how to make things work and kind of maybe start leading in an area that it isn't quite there yet on the solar map?
Yeah, I would say, some regions where you wouldn't normally expect as much interest or a maturity in the market, there is even more, I would say, ownership by the installers and responsibility to build community around solar in general, right? So that educational role becomes a community building role as well. And so we see installers going to, more of a community approach, meaning, showing up in, town halls, showing up at local, maybe even educational events, that are run by either the city or local governments or nonprofits and organizations in and around that area. And we definitely see a neighborhood, I would say a neighborhood by neighborhood sort of approach, right? You go to some neighborhoods and you see everyone has solar, right? It's because there's talk, right? I mean, homeowners, they know each other. Hey, where'd you get that, Bob? Oh, I went to this installer, and suddenly that entire neighborhood is solar, right? In fact, even Ed Norton, who spoke at our Empower Summit last year, he said, yeah, I got a whole bunch of my buddies in Hollywood to also go solar. So works at every level.
What stood out to you among the generational differences that were reported that installers maybe need to keep in mind, from baby boomers to millennials to Gen Z?
There is this shift overall, right, across all generations in society at large, about how we think about the environment, how we think about, building a sustainable future. And of note, of course, are the younger generations, right? The millennials in particular are definitely interested in going solar, getting EVs, right? These are sort of the monikers of their generation right now as they're buying homes. I think on the flip side of that, we see Gen X baby boomers being a little bit more price conscious and more sort of financing option conscious as well as part of that. So I don't know, to me, they're not necessarily surprising, but it's great, overall news for the industry that the younger generations that are the ones that are buying homes increasingly are going to be the ones that have just a predisposition almost, right? Almost like an expectation that when they do buy homes, they're going to have an EV that they're going to buy into solar.
So for maybe the older price conscious generations, they need to think about it as a boost to their property values, right? If you are forward thinking and add solar to your home, and the new generation eventually is going to, maybe buy your house if you're looking to sell it, that's going to be a bigger selling point, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great way to think about it, right? I mean, the older generations are ultimately going to be selling their homes, and they do want to see higher values for their homes. I think some of the research from the likes of Redfin have in fact indicated that it does drive up home values. So that's definitely in line. There's this aesthetic piece as well, right? The younger generations, not only are they more interested in solar, but they are also interested in how solar impacts the way their homes look. Now, this one's very subjective, right? It's some people actually like solar on their front roof, right?
The aesthetic thing is always just so weird to me. Like, does anyone look at their roof like, oh my gosh, look at that great roof? Like, what? Who cares? Put solar panels on there. Like, I just don't get it. I don't
Yeah,
understand.
like I said, very subjective, but
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
really important. But there's a home out there for everyone, and there's a solar system out there for everyone. Increasing options of what they look like, colors, size, shape.
So Sarah, before I let you get going, is there just anything else that we maybe glossed over or didn't get into that you want to kind of be your final takeaway from the report that stood out to you?
This is the only industry that I am aware of that is growing to the tune of 40% year over year. And even after, the sort of policy hiccups that we have on the solar coaster, it's still growing. And I think we just need to take a moment to acknowledge and appreciate, what a great time it is to be in this industry.
Classic journalist wanted to talk about all the negative stuff I picked out of the report their whole time. So I'm glad you picked out that to end on. So again, Sarah, thanks for taking the time to stop by the Buzz today and give us your 2 cents per kilowatt and walking through the report. It was really well done. So yeah, just thanks for taking the time.
Thanks so much, Chris.